We would like to start by thanking our community for their support.
Yeah.
This deep dive is dedicated to one of our listeners who asked us to talk about Greg Vezina
Oh, cool.
and his work with ammonia-powered vehicles.
Neat.
Now, you might not have heard of him,
Right.
but Vezina isn't your average inventor.
Okay.
He's more like a warrior
Uh-huh.
taking on a giant.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
He was fighting against the massive fossil fuel industry.
Really?
Trying to introduce a cleaner alternative.
Wow.
And he was doing this back in the early 1980s when most people weren't even thinking about climate change,
Right.
let alone alternative fuels.
Like he was a prophet preaching in the desert, right?
Yeah.
So what exactly was Vezina's big idea?
Well,
What drew him to ammonia?
he saw the potential of ammonia, or NH, as a clean fuel source.
Okay.
When burned, it produces zero carbon dioxide emissions.
Zero.
Zero.
Wow.
And unlike hydrogen, which is notoriously difficult to store,
Right.
ammonia can be stored in liquid form at relatively low pressures. In fact, you can store 4 times more energy as ammonia in the same volume tank compared to hydrogen.
Okay, so that's a huge advantage right there.
Yeah.
But how did he actually put this idea into practice?
He founded the Canadian Alternative Energy Corporation,
Okay.
or CAEC,
Got it.
and they developed technology to convert gasoline-powered vehicles to run on ammonia.
So they were converting existing cars.
Yeah.
Interesting.
One of his most famous projects was converting a Chevrolet Impala to run entirely on ammonia.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
He converted a regular Impala to run on ammonia?
Exactly.
Not some futuristic concept car, but a car you could see driving down the street.
Exactly.
Wow.
And that's part of what made his work so remarkable. He wasn't just dreaming up theoretical solutions. He
No.
was building real-world applications.
Mm.
And get this, the ammonia-powered Impala wasn't just a proof of concept.
Okay.
It had similar power and range compared to its gasoline-powered counterpart.
Now, that's what I call putting your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
But if it works so well, why didn't it catch on?
Well,
You'd think people would be lining up to buy a clean-running car, especially with growing concerns about climate change.
you would think so, wouldn't you?
Right.
But Vezina's story is a classic example of how groundbreaking inventions can get suppressed,
Oh, no.
especially when they threaten powerful industries.
I see.
He faced immense pushback from the fossil fuel industry,
Uh-huh.
which saw his work as a direct threat to their profits.
So we're talking about big oil flexing its muscles to protect its turf.
Yeah.
What kind of tactics did they use to try and silence him?
We're talking lobbying efforts,
Oh, wow.
political maneuvering, and
Oh.
even smear campaigns.
Wow.
Think tanks funded by the oil industry churned out reports questioning the safety and viability of ammonia fuel.
Oh, geez.
They even tried to discredit Vezina personally, portraying him as a fringe scientist with a dangerous idea.
It's like something out of a spy thriller,
Yeah.
with shadowy figures working behind the scenes to protect their interests.
Yeah.
But Vezina wasn't just fighting against corporate giants.
Right.
He also faced significant bureaucratic hurdles.
Right. He struggled to secure funding and get the necessary approvals to move forward with his technology.
Oh, man.
He ran into roadblock after roadblock from regulatory agencies
Oh, no.
to research institutions, making it incredibly difficult for him to gain any traction.
It's almost as if they were trying to bury his invention under a mountain of red tape.
Yeah,
But even with all these challenges, Vezina never gave up, right?
absolutely not.
Wow.
He was incredibly resilient and
Ugh.
continued to advocate for clean energy and expose the corruption that kept the world hooked on oil.
Wow, what a story.
He was a true warrior,
Yeah,
constantly battling for what he believed in.
amazing.
He even developed a specific ammonia-based fuel solution called hydrofuel.
Hydrofuel?
Yeah.
What's that all about?
Imagine giant solar farms in the desert powering the creation of ammonia fuel, essentially capturing sunlight in liquid form.
Interesting.
That's the essence of hydrofuel.
Okay,
It was designed to be produced from renewable energy sources
got it.
and used in existing internal combustion engines without requiring a complete overhaul of our infrastructure.
Okay, so it's a plant fuel that we can produce sustainably and use in our existing cars.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see why our listener was so intrigued by Vezina's story.
It's a story of innovation, perseverance,
Right.
and, unfortunately, suppression.
Yeah.
But even though Vezina faced incredible odds, his work laid the groundwork for the resurgence of interest in ammonia fuel that we're seeing today.
That's amazing to hear.
Yeah.
And we'll dive more into that after a quick break.
Cool. So before we went to break, we were talking about Vezina's vision for a clean energy future.
Right, and all the challenges he faced.
Exactly.
It's hard to believe that someone with such a promising solution could encounter so much resistance,
I know, it's crazy, right?
especially from those who stood to benefit the most from a cleaner world.
Yeah, you would think they would have been on board,
But that's exactly what happened.
unfortunately.
So let's dive a bit deeper into the technical aspects of his work.
Okay.
You mentioned his ammonia-powered Chevrolet Impala earlier.
Right.
That sounds pretty revolutionary for the time.
It was. Remember, this was back in the 1980s when the idea of running a car on anything other than gasoline was practically unheard of.
Yeah, that's true.
But Vezina proved it was possible.
How?
He and his team took a standard Impala, modified the engine, and replaced the gasoline tank with an ammonia tank.
Wow, so they were really just converting a normal car.
Pretty much. And at this, the car actually ran pretty well.
Okay, but how do they actually convert a gasoline engine to run on ammonia?
Well, it involved some key adjustments.
Like what?
One of the main challenges was getting the ammonia to ignite properly in the engine.
I see.
Ammonia doesn't burn as easily as gasoline, so they had to increase the compression ratio of the engine.
Oh, that makes sense.
They also had to develop a special fuel injection system to deliver the ammonia into the cylinders at the right pressure and temperature.
So it was pretty complex.
It was a challenge, but they were able to make it work.
That's impressive. The results were that impressive.
Yeah, they were. The ammonia-powered Impala had a similar range and power output compared to its gasoline counterpart.
That's incredible. So they were able to create a clean-burning car that performed just as well as a gas guzzler.
Yes, exactly.
Why wasn't this technology adopted sooner? It seems like the perfect solution to our dependence on fossil fuels.
It's a good question. As we discussed, there were powerful forces at play that actively worked to suppress Vezina's technology.
Right, big oil.
Exactly.
But there were also other factors that contributed to its slow adoption.
Yeah, like public perception.
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, most people associate ammonia with cleaning products.
Yeah, that's true.
And the thought of using it as a fuel source raised safety concerns.
I could see that.
Even though Vezina's technology addressed these concerns, there was still a lingering fear factor that was hard to overcome.
So it was a public relations challenge as much as a technological one.
Absolutely. People needed to be educated about the benefits of ammonia fuel and reassured about its safety.
Right.
And that takes time and effort, especially when you're up against a well-funded misinformation campaign from the fossil fuel industry.
That makes sense. It's one thing to invent a new technology. It's another thing entirely to convince people to embrace it.
Right.
Especially when it challenges long-held beliefs and habits.
Exactly.
But let's get back to the science for a moment.
Okay.
You mentioned that ammonia burns cleanly.
Yeah.
Can you explain exactly how that works?
Sure. Ammonia, which is chemically NHAI, reacts with oxygen during combustion
Okay.
to produce nitrogen and water vapor. That's it. No carbon dioxide, no soot, no harmful particulate matter.
So just clean emissions.
Yep, just clean emissions that don't contribute to climate change or air pollution.
So it's a truly zero-emission fuel when it comes to the actual burning process.
Yes, but there's a caveat.
Oh, what's that?
The production of ammonia itself can generate emissions depending on the energy source used.
I see.
Traditionally, ammonia is produced using natural gas, which is a fossil fuel.
Right.
So if you're using fossil fuels to produce the ammonia, you're not really solving the problem.
That's a crucial point. So even though ammonia burns cleanly the way it's produced, it can still have a significant impact on the environment.
Exactly. That's why Vezina was such a strong advocate for using renewable energy sources like wind, solar, and hydropower to produce ammonia.
Oh, so using clean energy to make clean fuel.
Yes, he envisioned a system where green ammonia produced using clean energy would power a new generation of vehicles and industries.
That's a powerful vision. It's like turning sunlight into fuel. So besides being clean burning, what are some of the other advantages of using ammonia as a fuel source?
Well, one of the biggest advantages is its energy density.
Energy density.
Yes, ammonia actually stores more energy per unit volume than liquid hydrogen, which is another promising alternative fuel. This means you can get more bang for your buck, so to speak.
Can you give us a sense of just how much more energy we're talking about?
Think of it this way. You can store about 4 times more energy as ammonia in the same sized tank compared to hydrogen.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is. That makes ammonia much easier to transport and store, which is a huge advantage when you're talking about building a new energy infrastructure.
Okay, so it's energy dense and easy to store. What about the infrastructure itself? Would we need to build a whole new network of fueling stations for ammonia-powered vehicles?
That's a common concern, but it's not as big of a hurdle as you might think.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Well, ammonia is already widely used in industry, particularly in agriculture, as a fertilizer.
Oh, right.
So the infrastructure for transporting and handling ammonia already exists.
So we could potentially adapt that existing infrastructure for fuel distribution.
Exactly. It would be a much smoother transition compared to building a whole new hydrogen infrastructure from scratch, which would be a massive undertaking.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we have a clean-burning, efficient, sustainable fuel source that can be stored and transported relatively easily.
Right.
We might even be able to leverage existing infrastructure to distribute it. This is starting to sound more and more like a viable solution.
It has a lot of potential.
But I have to ask, what about the safety concerns? I know ammonia could be quite toxic and has a strong odor.
Uh-huh.
Are there risks involved in using it as a fuel?
Those are valid concerns, and it's important to address them. Yes, pure ammonia can be dangerous if not handled properly,
Right.
but Vezina's technology was designed with safety as a top priority.
Okay, good.
The ammonia tanks in his vehicles were incredibly robust and leak-proof. They were built to withstand even the most extreme conditions.
And what about the smell? I've always associated ammonia with a very strong, pungent odor.
Yes, pure ammonia does have a strong odor, but the amount used in fuel is relatively small and is usually blended with other additives that mask the smell.
So it's not like you're going to be driving around in a cloud of ammonia fumes.
Not at all. And even if there were a small leak, ammonia dissipates quickly in the air. Unlike gasoline, which can linger and create a fire hazard,
Right.
ammonia wouldn't pool on the ground or create an explosive atmosphere.
So in some ways, it's actually potentially safer than gasoline.
It could be argued that it is. And again, the technology was designed with safety as a top priority.
All right, so let's recap. We have a clean-burning, efficient, sustainable fuel source that can be stored and transported safely.
Yes.
And it might even be cheaper to roll out using existing infrastructure, and it may even be safer than the gasoline we use now.
Right.
Why on earth didn't this take off?
That's the question that haunts Vezina's story. It speaks to the power of entrenched interests and the challenges of disrupting the status quo.
It's really a shame.
It is. But even though his vision didn't fully materialize during his lifetime, his work paved the way for a new generation of innovators who are picking up the torch and running with it.
That's good to hear. So Vezina may not have seen widespread adoption in ammonia in his time, but his legacy is now fueling a new generation of innovators.
Exactly.
And that's what we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive.
Looking forward to it.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been on quite a journey with Greg Vezina and his ammonia-powered vehicles. It's a story of innovation and perseverance.
Definitely.
But also a story of suppression. It's fascinating and frustrating all at the same time.
I agree. It really highlights the challenges of going up against powerful entrenched interests.
So true. But let's shift gears now. Where does all this stand today? Is Vezina's vision finally getting its moment in the sun?
It really seems to be, while Vezina might not have lived to see widespread adoption of ammonia fuel,
Right.
his legacy is inspiring a new generation of researchers, companies, and even governments who are taking this technology very seriously.
So it's not just a few scattered projects anymore. We're talking about a real global movement.
Absolutely. There are major initiatives happening worldwide focused on producing what's called green ammonia.
Green ammonia.
This means ammonia made not from fossil fuels,
Okay.
but using renewable energy sources like wind, solar, and hydropower.
So we're finally closing the loop. Clean ammonia to power clean cars. No more dirty secrets in the production process.
Exactly. It's about creating a truly sustainable system.
What are some of the most exciting projects out there right now?
Well, there's a massive project in Australia aiming to become a global hub for green ammonia exports.
Wow, Australia.
They have abundant solar energy, which makes it an ideal location. Then you've got Saudi Arabia, of all places,
Oh, Arabia.
investing heavily in green ammonia production. They see it as a way to diversify their economy beyond oil.
Wow. Talk about a shift in thinking. From the heart of the oil kingdom to a potential green fuel powerhouse.
It's pretty remarkable.
But what about closer to home? Any action happening in North America?
Absolutely. There are pilot projects popping up in the U.S. and Canada,
Really?
particularly focused on using ammonia for heavy-duty transportation like trucks and ships.
Interesting. Why those sectors?
Well, those are harder to electrify with batteries.
Right, because of the weight.
Exactly. So ammonia's high energy density becomes a real asset in those applications.
So it's not just cars anymore. Ammonia's potential goes way beyond that.
It really does. Think about cargo ships, long-haul trucking, even potentially airplanes in the future.
Wow, I hadn't even thought about airplanes.
And don't forget about stationary power generation. Ammonia can be burned in power plants that are modified to reduce emissions.
Oh, so it can help clean up our electricity grid, too.
Exactly. It provides a cleaner alternative to coal or natural gas.
My mind is officially blown. This is starting to feel like the tip of the iceberg. But even with all this momentum, are there still challenges ahead?
Of course, scaling up production of green ammonia to meet global demand is a huge undertaking.
Yeah, I can imagine.
We need more investment, more infrastructure development,
Right.
and continued research into making the entire process as efficient and cost-effective as possible.
And what about the safety concerns we discussed earlier? Are those being addressed as this technology moves forward?
Absolutely. Safety is paramount. New technologies for ammonia storage, transport, and handling are being developed all the time.
Okay, good to know.
And we're incorporating lessons learned from other industries that already use ammonia extensively.
It sounds like the world is finally waking up to the potential that Greg Vezina saw decades ago. His persistence, despite all the setbacks, has helped pave the way for what could be a real energy revolution.
It's a testament to the power of one person's vision and determination.
And it's a reminder that even seemingly impossible dreams can become reality with enough dedication and a willingness to challenge the status quo.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
So what can our listeners do to be a part of this movement? How can they support this transition to a cleaner energy future?
There are so many ways to get involved. Support companies investing in green ammonia and other clean energy solutions.
Right.
Talk to your elected officials about policies that promote renewable energy and sustainable transportation.
Good idea.
And stay informed. The more people understand the potential of ammonia, the faster we can make this transition happen.
Knowledge is power, as they say. And Greg Vezina's story is a powerful reminder that we don't have to accept the world as it is. We can imagine a better future, a cleaner future.
I love that.
And we can work together to make it happen.
Well said.
Well, on that note, we're going to wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive. A huge thank you to our listener who requested this incredible topic.
Yes, thank you.
We hope this journey has been as eye-opening for you as it has been for us.
And remember, the future is not something that just happens to us.
Right.
It's something we create. So let's go out there and build a world that Greg Vezina would be proud of, a world where clean energy fuels our lives and powers our dreams.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.